If you feel like you eat a ton of food, but you feel like you just can't gain weight because of your fast metabolism, trust me, girl, I was there. And I'm gonna show you exactly how I gained healthy weight and then how I pretty much gained like 50 pounds of muscle. It did not require eating junk food. I mean, I still enjoy junk food. The food choices didn't have to be like a dirty bulk, and I most definitely did not work out every single day. In fact, I was underweight for a couple of years, pretty much like around the start of my college career. I always got the comments of like, you need to eat a cheeseburger, you're just too skinny, girl, you look so fragile. I think that was the one I hated the most. But it felt like no matter what I ate, no matter what I did, nothing was working and I could not gain weight. I'll break down exactly what I had to change in my diet, how I had to change up my workouts and my training, and the biggest mistake that I didn't even realize I was making when it came to nutrition. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. I am your fitness coach bestie who's going to give you all of the tips and drown out all of the BS. The first thing is understanding NEAT, energy expenditure, and how calories work. And I feel like this might be the case for most of you, but I thought I was eating enough and I just wasn't. Every time that I told myself that I ate a lot of food, it just meant that I was feeling full, but that did not mean that I was actually eating enough. And because I was not eating enough and I had such a high energy expenditure, it was almost like being in a bathtub where like you just have the water running constantly and the energy, the calories, the water is just going out of the drain. I was burning out. I was just not in a good place mentally on top of that. Once I realized that I had to overfill this tub, meaning I need to eat more than what I'm used to, that's when things took a shift and I understand what it meant to eat more calories. So by definition, a calorie is a unit of energy. Your body is always constantly working. Your body is burning calories even in your sleep. These calories are known as BMR, your basal metabolic rate. These are the calories that are keeping you alive. And already for most of you, it's probably around 1200 to 1500, depending on so many other factors. And then when you're awake, your activity level outside of the gym, outside of the bed, when you're not sleeping anymore, those are now other calories you need to account for. And typically, on average, the maintenance calories is usually anywhere between 1800 to 2100. This is also including your BMR. If you are not eating over your maintenance, you are not eating in a surplus, meaning you will not gain weight. So this is when I dove into the world of calorie tracking. And I feel like there's such a bad stigma when it comes to calorie tracking because everybody feels like it's obsessive, it's harmful, and it can be depending on other factors. But if you're somebody who budgets your money already, if you're somebody who likes to see how much money is leaving and coming into your bank account and you budget for all the things that you enjoy doing, your hair appointments, your nail appointments, that is exactly how calorie counting works. You can think of it like when you get your paycheck, that is your total amount of calories for the day. Let's say, just for simplicity, it's 2000. Between these 2000 calories, you have a certain amount for carbs, you have a certain amount for protein, for fats, and that's how you can decide what you're going to eat for the day. So yeah, you might have been eating a lot, but it was probably foods that were never ever going to shape your body. I'll even paint the picture. When I was struggling, I was eating things like fruit, a lot of nuts, ice cream, chips, all these things that are high calorie. And the problem with those foods is that it would make me feel so full, so bloated that I didn't want to eat anymore. But if I counted up all those calories for those days, it ended up just being like 1500, 1600, especially if all you do is just sit on the couch and you're not doing any other activity. So that goes into NEAT, which is basically things you do that are not exercise related. This could be doing laundry. This could be going on a walk throughout the day. This could just be when you're sitting and watching TV, but you fidget your hand, your toes. That is also energy expenditure. And I realized that if I wasn't getting enough NEAT, if I was not moving my body, I had no desire to eat food, and that's why I would feel full all the time. Not to mention the bloating because of all the high sodium foods I was eating. So then I got to a point where I had to just stop guessing and actually start tracking. And that's when I realized that I was still completely under the calories that I needed to be eating. So then when I looked up, okay, how to be healthy and gain weight, it gave me things like salads. It gave me things like low calorie diets, keto, all of these things that just were not fitting for me. But then it also felt conflicting because the idea that you could eat like a hamburger, but you could make it from home was still out of the question because of how I grew up. I was taught that carbs are bad. In fact, I remember when I was 16 years old, my aunt was staying in the house with me for a couple of weeks. I don't remember why. It might have been something that we needed help from her. I don't remember exactly why. But what I do remember is that she saw me getting ice cream 2 times in that day. And she gave me this lecture about diabetes at 16, saying that I'm eating too much sugar, I'm not watching what I eat. But what she didn't see that day was I was running 5 miles that day. In fact, I was running anywhere between 2 to 5 miles almost every single day because I believe that that's what helps you get that body. So then that scared me into the tactics of like, okay, I can't eat ice cream. I can't eat all of these good, delicious food. And it took so long to get out of that. So then I would still opt for other types of foods, all in between. But what I learned was that just because you feel full doesn't mean that you're in a calorie surplus, because I was eating all of these types of foods. I don't want to say bad because I really hate categorizing between foods that are good and bad. It's just I was eating all these foods that were not serving my goals, and I just didn't feel good mentally, physically, all of that. So here are all the food swaps I had to make so that I could also gain weight without feeling like I was too full or without having my stomach blow outside of my pants. So we all heard that like chicken breast is considered lean and clean, and that is true. But all of the chicken is clean and lean. It just depends on how you choose to eat the chicken for your goals. So for example, if you are trying to gain weight, don't get chicken breast, get chicken thighs. You still get plenty of protein, you still get the calories that come with it, and you don't feel like disgustingly full. Instead of getting non-fat Greek yogurt, you can get full fat, so you still get the same amount of protein, but you get the higher calorie version, so you don't need to eat 2 times the amount of Greek yogurt. Same thing goes for ground beef. You don't have to get the leanest of the ground beef. You can get the higher fat content of ground beef, or even ground turkey, any of those things. You still get around the same protein amount. That way you don't have to eat 2 times the amount of food to try and hit those calories. And this just goes to like so many other things. Instead of getting fat-free cheese or low fat, get the full fat. When it comes to protein powders, you don't have to get whey isolate. You can get the casein protein, the ones that are typically higher in calorie content, but still a lot of protein. Which, by the way, if you are on the lookout for a new protein powder, you can use my code Miriam at legionsupplements.com. And if you've never ordered from them before, you can get 20% off your first order. I love their protein powders. It's clean. I love the ingredients in it. And for whatever reason, if you don't love it, they have a no ask return. So if you didn't like it, they will ask no questions. You will just get a return and your full money back. The biggest thing that I noticed when it came to bulking between men and women is that men would go more for like the dirty bulk, so eating all of like the not so feeling good in your body type of foods like hot dogs, hamburgers, which is fine. You could go that route. But I found that if you eat more protein and you incorporate more protein into your diet, you're going to find that your body will change a lot better. Because what ended up happening for me was, yeah, I had a lot of muscle, but I looked a little beefy. And don't get me wrong, I still loved my body. I still appreciated everything about it. But I remember kind of thinking like, there's got to be a different way to go about this. So I had to basically train myself to stop eating the higher calorie, not so good feeling type of foods and opt for the regular foods that I would normally eat on a diet or on a cut. But then there was also the other extreme where I wasn't eating that great. And so now I kind of looked more skinny fat instead of just skinny with muscle. So prioritize your protein. When you are eating in a surplus, you will be able to eat all your protein. There is no excuse to not be able to eat your body weight in protein. And if you are wondering how you can get into a surplus, I will show you how. You can go on any TDEE calculator, you'll enter in all your information, and when you hit calculate, it typically always gives you your maintenance calories first. And if you scroll down, you'll see that there's already section tabs for cutting, bulking, and maintenance. For cutting or bulking, it always kind of goes to the extreme of eat 500 calories for a bulk. But you honestly don't have to do that unless you have a lot of weight to gain. You could try for that, but jumping from barely eating enough to a 500 calorie surplus, like your maintenance plus 500 more calories, that's going to be quite difficult. You're not going to feel very good about yourself. You're going to be forcing yourself to eat at 9 p.m. when you just want to go to bed. So my recommendation is take it very slowly. For 1 week, just eat in maintenance. If that ends up being really easy to do, you had no problems, then you could add 100 more. If it was still difficult, stay in maintenance for another week. If you find that, okay, it's getting a little bit easier, Perfect. Now you can add another 100 calories that following week. If that week felt a little bit difficult to eat more food, then keep it at that and just gradually go up. You don't have to go to 500 calories if you're not trying to gain an insane amount of weight. You can just stick to around 200, 300. And I personally feel like 200 is more than enough and to be in a surplus to be able to see those positive changes. The one thing I want to note when it comes to the activity level when you enter in your TDEE is that the days that you work out kind of more represent your step count. So if you are very sedentary, you don't get any movement throughout the day, you are at a desk job all day, you don't get any steps, then you want to do the sedentary. If you get somewhat around 4,000, 5,000 steps, then you can put lightly active, and then so on and so forth. Typically, if you get around 7,000 or even 8,000 steps and you work out 3 to 4 times a week, then you can do the moderate. Anything above that, you either got to be an athlete or getting way more than 10,000 steps a day. And just because you're trying to gain weight doesn't mean you should neglect that extra movement, because trying to eat a lot of food, you're going to feel kind of bloated. You might feel a little uncomfortable. So that's when you can go on a walk just to kind of help the digestion. And plus, you get to eat a little bit more carbs. And who doesn't love that? Okay, the training. Essentially with training, my biggest mistake was I was just running too much, because I really thought that if you just run, you will gain the muscles that way, you will look toned, you will look exactly how all these beautiful models do. And no, like I said, it just turned me into skinny fat. And could I have shaped it a little bit more had I known better? Yes, I could have. And that's where it brings me into my partner, who introduced me to the gym. Fell in love with it immediately. I fell so in love with it that I actually ended up hating cardio. And even when I started lifting, even kind of from home, whether I did like booty band workouts or just try to get creative with like doing step ups in the house, I remember I had family members tell me I had frog legs because I was doing way too much emphasis on my legs and not any other body part. But that was also because I didn't know how to train. But because you follow me, you know I'm not going to let you make that mistake. In a weird way, lifting ended up healing my relationship with food, because when I would try to undereat, I would underperform in the gym. I would feel tired, I would feel lethargic, I would not feel good. I would feel nauseous after my workouts. So then when I would look into why I'm feeling this way, the first question that is always asked, and that's usually from my partner when I was telling him about this, he told me like, well, how much are you eating? Do you know your calorie count? And I just gave this blank face of, I don't know how much I eat. So that's when I realized that, okay, I'm not eating enough carbs. And yes, carbs are so important when you are training, because I want you to think about your carbs being gas fuel. If you had a road trip planned, are you going to go on an empty tank? I would hope not. So that's the same idea. When you go into a training session, are you going to go in with barely any carbs in your system? So when I learned, okay, all I need is more carbs, so I started eating more. And then some days I found that I wasn't eating enough, and then some days I were. So then that taught me that there are different types of carb fuel. You have the high calorie foods, and then you have low calorie foods. So when I started eating the usual diet, like chicken, rice, potatoes, all of the foods that are deemed as clean, I would just need to get the higher calorie version of them. So for example, one of my favorite breakfasts is this breakfast bowl. It has potatoes, it has egg whites, it has turkey bacon in it, and this is what I'm eating right now on a cut. If I wanted to make this a higher calorie version, I would swap out egg whites for real eggs. I don't want to say real eggs, whole eggs, not egg whites. For the turkey bacon, I chose the leanest one, but this time I would opt then for the more fattier version of a turkey bacon. So that way it's higher calorie, but same amount of protein. And the best part about being able to eat more is that you're not restricted to lower calorie sauces or any of that stuff. So in my cut, I put things on top of it like salsa, something lower calorie. But I know if I'm ever going to bulk again, I'm going to drown it in some sort of breakfast sauce like garlic aioli. I can mix like mayonnaise with like Greek yogurt, make like this huge mix out of it, especially if you use full fat Greek yogurt. Make this mix, drizzle that on top, and it's a higher calorie meal. We just took a 450 calorie meal to a 700 calorie. Boom, you just ate more calories without feeling more full. This was also the realization that you have the full power to make your body look how you want to. I think everybody's trying to shift to Pilates because they fear that they're going to get big and bulky when they lift. And it's like, No, it doesn't happen that fast. My proof is that it still took me 5 years to get to this point. So if you don't want to look big and beefy like my mistake, don't go into a straight 500 calorie surplus. If you want to stay thin and just look a little bit more leaner, stick to being in maintenance or just add 100 to 200 calories of a surplus. I promise it doesn't happen that quick because it will take you years to get to that point. And when it comes to your training, there are no exercises or movements that are better to do when you bulk or cut. Your training is the only thing that stays the same. If the goal is to build bigger glutes, then keep all of the same exercises in rotation, hip thrust, RDLs, squats, all of those things. If anything, when you start to eat more food and more calories too, you have more energy. Use that energy to lift harder so you can make some more muscle. And I'm just going to preface that I think I've actually already said it a couple of times, but it will take time. I feel like people think it's so much easier to gain weight than it is to lose weight, but I think it's the opposite because there have been so many times when I was eating in a surplus and I was just sick of food. I was already full by 8 p.m., but I still had like 400 more calories to eat. So then that's when I had to try and get creative and find higher calorie foods that weren't that filling. So for example, like drinking juice. A full glass of juice is like 130 calories, but it's not that filling because it's just straight liquid. So I was able to chug that. I got some calories down, but then I still had a couple more. And it's actually very tiring to eat more food once you start eating the more high protein, high carb kind of food. So in summary, if you think you're eating a lot, you're probably not. Get into tracking, just practice with it. Like at this point, what do you have to lose? It's going to be tedious and really annoying in the beginning. But I promise you, the more you do it, the easier it gets, the more you're not even going to think about it. Don't let your training change. Keep it the same, whether you're trying to gain weight, lose weight. In this case, because we're trying to gain weight, just stick with the simple basics. I have so many videos that go into how you can train. And lastly, if there's anything I didn't cover, please, please, please let me know in the comments because then it gives me more ideas of what more content to create. And of course, if you already haven't, make sure you are subscribed.